I'm just gonna keep it on one level here. Cooking for omnivores, straight cooking. This is just what I teach in culinary school. And then if you want to go gluten flour, that would be a variation on this standard technique right here, okay? Debbie Cunningham, good to see you. Thanks for watching. All right, so, let me just kind of stop right there. That's kind of the definition of braising. Now I want to kind of get this started, and the first part of this step is going to be searing and everything. So while it's searing, I'll kind of get back into talking about what it is that we're trying to do here, okay? So let me go ahead and get the meat started and everything. I think I've kind of defined what we're doing here, and we will get this party started, okay? Before I do, let me get another little sip before I fall asleep on you people. You got a caffeine load for this show. All right. Hey, buddy, my cat's over here yelling at me. Okay, so what I have here is I have some of the short ribs I pre-seared just to go ahead and save time here, okay? So you don't need to see me doing batches of this stuff, okay? But I still have some of the meat on the side here that I have not seared, so I'll do a second batch in another pan, okay? Go ahead and take a look at what I've got. You might be able to see that I am sitting on a paper towel here. We're getting into searing here, and we want our meat to be very, very dry, or whatever product that you're working with, okay? So we are drying that off. And another thing, if you look very, very closely, you'll see some string wrapped around these short ribs. 3 of them have string, and I've left a couple of them without string because I wanted to kind of show you how to tie off one of these short ribs. When you look at these short ribs, sometimes they're in layers, right? You can kind of see layers there, and sometimes you've got this one layer, like this piece on top could just easily fall off. So while this cooks, I just want to tie a string around there to keep it in one piece and through the searing process and that low and slow cooking, okay? So I've got 2 pieces that I left that are untied. I'm going to show you that. And then we're going to season these guys up a little bit and we're going to sear them, okay? Before I get into tying this thing, very, very important, when we're searing, we need a super hot pan. I've got about 2 minutes of searing here, or tying here. So what I'm gonna do is start firing up this pan. I got a little flame underneath it, and it's getting hot while I'm tying this. So once I'm done tying, all I gotta do is season it and start searing. That's the goal. Saving steps, thinking ahead. Cooking is all timing here, okay? So, let me wash my hands real quick. I just touched a piece of meat, and I'm gonna touch more, but I probably should have washed my hands again before I touch that. Anyway, you busted me. Bad chef. Bad. Washy washy. I hope when you guys are washing your hands, you're getting inside those fingers, that finger area. Really get in there. That's one of the most common places that people miss, okay? Often in those little crevices and the backs of your hands and your wrists, okay? Get all of that stuff. Hand washing. There's so much to talk about. All right, still got some music rolling through my head. As always, I always got music rolling around in there. All right, Michael Spitzer, used it before. Oh, gluten allergies, sure, yeah, you're back to that. Okay, yeah. Some people are very good at that. I am not one of them. All right, so let's tie these 2 little short ribs that I left complete, okay? I have a bolt. We call that a bolt of butcher's twine right there. There it is. And I am going to leave that butcher's twine on my table here. I need to adjust my camera so you guys can kind of see. And then I've just got one of my little short ribs on the table. I want to kind of point out, you see the layers here, okay? I want to point out that I want the string going this way to hold those layers together. If I put the string this way, it kind of defeats the purpose. The whole thing's just going to fall apart, okay? Now, I'm going to back this up so maybe you can see a little bit more of this process. Try and get this bolt in the picture here. Okay, so you can see the edge of my bolt there, and I'm gonna pull off a bunch of string, more string than I think I need here, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna kind of roll that with the string towards me. I'm sorry, with the tip of the string away from me. I roll that underneath a piece of the meat. And I use the 2-finger method here, okay? What I'm gonna do is bring the loose end over the top, and then I take 2 fingers. You see these 2 strings right here? I take 2 fingers and I go all the way around with them. I've got both of those strings, and then I come up and there's my 2 fingers. There's the end of the string. I grab the end of the string with my 2 fingers and I pull it through. This is gonna create a slip knot that if I pull on the the body of the string rather than the end of the string, that's going to tighten the meat. It's going to tighten the wind around the meat. And I want this right in the center. So when I pull on it, I can tighten it, but if I pull on the loose end, I can loosen it up again if I don't like where that string is setting. So this is a really great tie. This is the butcher's tie, the real one, not the running chef's tie that you often see, okay? Once I kind of tighten that up and the string is where I want it, I'm gonna do the same thing. I got my 2 fingers again. I'm gonna go underneath the body of the twine, go around to make a loop, and then I grab the end of the string with my 2 fingers and pull them through. This is just what surgeons use their forceps for in surgery. And that completes the knot, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. And there's a tied one. I'm gonna do that one more time. So here's another piece of meat. This top layer on here is almost falling off, okay? So I'm gonna set it on down. It almost fell apart right there. I'm gonna set it down. And again, the tip of the string away from me, the body of the string going underneath. Let me get a little more string off my bolt. You need a lot of slack here. And then I'm gonna take my 2 fingers, and I go underneath both strings and I wrap them around my 2 fingers, and then my 2 fingers are up. I put the end of the string in between them and pull it through. Tighten both sides and then kind of adjust my meat. It's kind of melting on me here. Ooh, this one's kind of sticking. What happened? Let me try this again. Back to square one, okay? String away from me, tip of the string away. I got the body underneath, okay? Both strings are towards me now. I go underneath with 2 fingers around, and then I grab the end of the string and pull through. And tighten. Now it's rolling. And there we go, okay? And that's holding that piece together. That thing was just falling apart. It never would have survived the process if I didn't tie this thing, okay? Second half of the knot, okay? I got my 2 fingers. Both strings are towards me. I go underneath and around, make a little loop, and then it's a little short here. This is why you need the slack. And then I'm just gonna cheat and pull it through. And that's the second half of that knot. And there it is. I'm gonna get rid of that string. I'm gonna wash hands here. Let's see, Roberto is out there, Peter is out there, Renee, Alma, great to see you folks. Thanks for joining. Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour. Another exciting episode. Stuck in my little house here with all of you wonderful folks. Thanks for visiting, okay? This makes my day, honestly. All right, let's get that meat back up here. Again, my meat is sitting on paper towels here so it can be dry for this searing process, okay? I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of those paper towels. I think things are pretty dry. And I'm gonna drop some seasoning on this, okay? When I say seasoning, I'm usually talking about salt. And I'm gonna be doing a lot of it. I should say this meat looks a little weird right now. I didn't mention that last night I salted this meat and I threw it in some red wine, okay? And we're gonna talk about acids and their effect on meats here in a little bit, but when I toss that in the red wine, just trust me for now, okay? That is gonna help break down those connective tissues and help make this meat a little more tender. So acidic marinades are your friend when you're doing tough cuts of meat and in a slow process. So that red wine, very acidic. It's been in red wine and salt all night, just to pick up a little tenderness, a little flavor, and all the rest, okay? I'm gonna rinse my hand and get a little more salt. Let's try that again. I really wanna go a lot of salt here. No joke. You know, honestly, when you're searing stuff, when you're grilling stuff, you put all this salt on the outside of something, half of it's falling off anyway. So you really need like twice as much salt on those than you think you might need. Okay, rolling it around and all that love. All this time I've had a little flame under here, and now I'm gonna crank it, okay? Again, on my Spinal Tap scale of heat, from 1 to 11, It's on 11 right now, okay? If you don't know about Spinal Tap, look it up. You'll thank me, okay? Okay, just a quick little rinse, okay? Okay, so this is a little bit of review for a lot of you folks. This is all about searing, which we've been talking about for a couple of times here, a couple of days. Searing, a review, high heat, small amount of fat, and it's all about getting some golden brown on it, okay? These pieces of meat are cubular shaped, and so they got 6 sides on them. I want to sear every single side I got. The more searing that I can generate, that golden brown on the outside, the more of that delicious, meaty umami flavor that you get. And if you're unfamiliar with umami, it's this Japanese concept of a taste that we all perceive, and it's that idea of like a meaty or mushroomy flavor is umami, okay? That's basically what we're doing, is creating umami here by searing this off, and I mentioned earlier, by creating a brown sauce. It's all umami. A little spill here. Let me get that. All right. So, William Tomlinson, hey, good to see you there, buddy. Michael again. Wine till it's submerged normally. I like it. Norman Telez, good to see you. Another culinary celebrity out there. All right, getting into searing. Like I said, high heat, a little bit of fat, okay? I'm going to use some, I have some duck fat here that I'm going to use. I've been using for a lot of stuff. People often ask me about what fat to use. I like to answer that question by saying what fats I don't want to use, okay? If I'm searing, certain fats are never going to reach the temperature that I want without breaking down. A good example of this is Rachel Ray. She always talked about the EVO, as from what I understand. I've never seen her show or anything, but she always talks about EVO, right? You can't saute with the EVO or sear with EVO. It's just too hot of a process, and that oil will really start breaking down. So butter is another example of a fat that I cannot use for searing. Have you ever burned butter before? It burns at a pretty low temperature, and I would never get enough heat to sear something if I was using whole butter. The French will use clarified butter, and they'll remove all the particles in there that might burn, and so you can sear in that. That's pretty good for it, but if you're just using whole butter, it's never gonna work. Outside of that, most fats are pretty good. One fat that a lot of chefs are using nowadays for searing purposes, I'll just show it to you, I'm not advertising, but grapeseed oil, okay? This is a very, very neutral flavored oil. It's great for making like infused oils where you want to pick up the flavors of something else without an oil flavor behind it, okay? But it's also got a pretty darn high smoke point. It's fairly unsaturated. It's a light oil. It's a good all-purpose oil for the kitchen if you're doing searing and things like that. So I've got a little bit of that, I've got my duck fat in there. I'm gonna go ahead and just start placing my cubes of meat in there. Wow, did you hear that hit that pan? It is smoking hot. We are on 11. And I'm looking in the pan, it's slightly dry. I'm gonna add a tiny bit of fat, but let me wash my hands first. Get rid of this. We'll clean it up. I gotta do a little transition. Okay. Yeah, definitely a little more fat. I don't want them swimming, but I want enough fat to coat the bottom of the pan and to be touching things. I'm gonna rinse this board. Make sure everybody's, yeah, much better. Okay, we got a little fat in the pan now. Let me rinse off this board real quick. I see a question there. What about ghee? Ghee is another excellent alternative that can stand a pretty high heat. Ghee does have a flavor that works really, really well with a lot of stuff, but sometimes that flavor might not be what you're looking for certain dishes. So ghee, when it's appropriate. It can also stand a high heat because much like clarified butter, ghee, by the way, is like a butter that's been simmered until the milk solids kind of toast. They stick to the edges of the pan, and then you just have this perfect butter in there, butter fat, I should say, with no milk solids that are gonna burn, right? And so when this process is done, because you've caramelized those milk solids and they stick to your pan, the butter itself, the ghee, is actually kind of got this toasty, nutty flavor that's dynamite. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things in the world, I could eat this every day, is basmati rice tossed with a little bit of ghee, a little ghee drizzled in there. It's just like classic stuff, and that flavor combination just buckles my knees. I love it, and it's just so simple and good. I could just eat a giant bowl. I picture myself with this giant spoon.